You ever catch yourself doing something strange, like eating straight out of the peanut butter jar, or talking to the TV like it's a real person, and then pause and go, wait a minute, is this just what happens when you live alone for too long? Yeah, I've been there too. Living alone in your later years can be peaceful, sure, but it can also play tricks on you. Little habits sneak in. The house gets quiet, and before you know it, you're wearing the same pair of socks 3 days in a row just because no one's around to stop you. In today's video, I want to talk to you like an old friend about the subtle things you should avoid when you're living solo in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. Not the obvious stuff. I'm talking about the real traps, the ones that sneak into your daily life and slowly shrink your joy. So, if you've ever felt like your world's getting a little too small, this one's for you. Number 1. Avoid making every meal a solo chore. Let me tell you about my neighbor Carl. Carl's in his early 70s, widowed about 8 years now. Handy guy. Used to be a carpenter. Can build a rocking chair from scratch, but put him in front of a stove and he acts like the thing's about to explode. After his wife passed, he kind of gave up on meals. He told me once, "What's the point of cooking a full dinner when it's just me?" So, his diet started revolving around crackers, peanut butter, and whatever he could grab without effort. You'd think he was training for life in a bunker. One day, I dropped by and caught him spooning cold soup straight out of the can, not even heating it up. I raised an eyebrow and he shrugged and said, "It's not bad once your tongue goes numb." We laughed, but truth be told, that kind of eating wears on a person. You stop looking forward to meals, and then suddenly a big part of your daily rhythm disappears. Meals aren't just about calories. They're tiny rituals, comforts. They remind you that you're still living, not just existing. I once asked Carl to come over and help me with some shelves. And afterward, I surprised him with a simple lunch. Homemade grilled cheese, tomato soup, and a cold beer. Nothing fancy. But I'll never forget how he paused, looked down at the plate, and said, "Man, this feels like something again." That's the thing. Even if it's just you, make it something. Use a real plate. Sit down, throw a cloth napkin on your lap like you're royalty, even if your kingdom is just your kitchen. Play some music. Well, light a candle. Heck, talk to your meal if it helps. Tell that grilled cheese how fine it looks. And maybe once in a while invite someone over. Or cook like you're expecting company, even if the only one joining you is the cat. Because when food becomes joy again, even in small ways, so does life. Number 2. Avoid falling into the TV as my roommate trap. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-TV. I've got a deep, unhealthy love for old westerns. I swear if I see Clint Eastwood squint one more time, I might start wearing a poncho around the house. There's comfort in the background noise, the familiar characters, the predictable ending. It fills the space. But here's where it gets tricky. There was a week right after a rough patch when I left the TV on from sunrise to bedtime. I told myself it was just background noise. But in truth, I was avoiding the silence, avoiding myself. It was easier to let the voices from the screen fill the room than to sit in the quiet and ask, what do I actually want to do today? I remember reading a comment from a fellow named Bill Dot. No. He wrote, "The TV used to be entertainment. Now it's my roommate. We don't talk, but we never leave each other's side." And man, did that hit. Because when you live alone, the TV starts acting like company, but passive company. It doesn't ask you to move, to think, to live. You just sit and time rolls by. You don't even realize you've been watching commercials for arthritis cream for 4 hours until the sun sets. So, I made a change. I turned watching TV into an event. Instead of flipping it on the moment I woke up, I saved it. I'd do my little morning routine. Coffee, a walk, some stretching, maybe even a crossword. And then, if I really wanted to watch something, I chose something intentional. A film, a series I cared about, and I turned it off when it ended. The silence afterward. When you're out bows, one works. It was a little jarring at first, but then I noticed something. I started humming more, reading more, even calling folks I hadn't spoken to in ages. The space the TV used to fill was now mine again. It's not about cutting the cord. It's about cutting the dependence because you're still the main character in your story, not a background extra on somebody else's screen. Number 3. Avoid letting the front door become a wall. Let me paint you a picture. There's this house down the block. White fence, overgrown roses, the kind of porch that begs for a rocking chair and a pitcher of lemonade. Belongs to Mrs. Doy, 81. Lived there for decades. After her husband passed, she stopped coming outside. At first, it was winter, then a sore knee. Then, well, it just became her routine to stay in. Her daughter installed grocery deliveries. Her meds came in the mail. A nice fellow from church even put a lockbox outside for her keys. She didn't need to open the door anymore. Weeks turned into months. Doy once joked if it wasn't for the mailman, I wouldn't know the world still spins. And I understood. It's not just about going out. It's about the symbolism of the front door. When you stop using it, when you stop looking out into the world, it starts to feel like the world has moved on without you. But here's where the story turns. One spring morning, Doy told me she opened her front door just to let in some air. A little hesitant, she stepped out barefoot onto the porch. The sun hit her face. The breeze ruffled her thinning hair, and a neighbor's kid rode by on a bike and yelled, "Hi, Miss Doy!" She smiled for the first time in weeks. Now she opens the door every morning, not always to leave, sometimes just to breathe. And me, I started doing the same. Even if I'm not going anywhere, I crack that door open. I say hello to the trees. I nod at the clouds. I remind the world and myself that I'm still in it. Because when the front door becomes a wall, it shuts out more than wind and strangers. It shuts out wonder. So open it, even just a crack. Let the day in. Who knows? The breeze might carry something good your way. Number 4. Avoid saying I'm too old for that. There's a man I met online named Eugene. He's 78, lives in New Mexico, and last year he took up paddleboarding. Paddleboarding. Now that sounds like a punchline to a joke, doesn't it? But Eugene, who proudly calls himself creaky but curious, saw some folks paddling at a nearby lake, and something in him lit up. He said it looked peaceful, like walking on water without needing a miracle. Of course, the first few times he fell off, lost his sunglasses, swallowed enough lake water to water a cactus garden, but he kept going back. And do you know why? Because he wanted to feel something new. He told me, "I've figured I'm old enough to stop caring about what people think and young enough to give it a try." That line hit me like a freight train. Because here's the thing. We say I'm too old like it's a fact. But really, it's a fence. A self-built boundary that keeps us safe and stuck. I remember a woman who joined a salsa class at 74 because her hips weren't done yet. And why should they be? As long as there's rhythm in your bones and mischief in your mind, you're not done either. The truth is, most people who say, "I'm too old," aren't talking about physical ability. They're talking about fear. Fear of looking silly, of being the oldest one in the room, of failing. But friend, failing at something new beats succeeding at doing nothing any day. Don't age into avoidance. Age into adventure. Even if your version of paddleboarding is just learning to paint sunflowers, or taking an online class about pirate history. Yes, that's a real thing. I checked. 1 6. The point is this. You're not too old. You're just waiting to surprise yourself. Number 5. Avoid turning your bedroom into your universe. All right, here's where I have to confess. I did this one. After I retired, I slowly migrated into my bedroom like a bear, preparing for hibernation. It started with moving the TV in, then my favorite chair, then snacks, books, even the remote for the ceiling fan. My living room started to collect dust, and my dining table became an art piece for the cat to sleep on. At some point, I looked around and realized I wasn't living in my house. I was camping in one corner of it. And that's the trap, isn't it? When you live alone, especially at an older age, your world can quietly shrink without you noticing. You stay where it's most comfortable, where the light switch is close, where your charger's already plugged in. Before you know it, you're spending 90% of your time in one room, and the rest of your home becomes a storage museum. Now, I'm not saying you need to march around like a cruise director every morning, but your home, it's meant to be lived in. All of it. It reflects your life. So I started doing little things. Coffee in the kitchen, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Reading in the armchair by the window instead of under the covers. I started eating dinner at the dining table again, even if it was just soup and toast. I put on music while I folded laundry in the guest room. Bit by bit, I moved back in. Because here's the truth. Your space affects your spirit. And if you let your world shrink to 4 walls and a bed, your energy shrinks right along with it. Make your bedroom your resting place, not your entire world. And maybe leave the snacks in the kitchen, unless they're Oreos. I'm not a monster. Number 6. Avoid thinking routine equals boredom. Let's talk about routines. They get a bad rap. People act like routines are what slowly kill off your spark. Same old routine, they say, as if doing something every day means you're stuck. But I'm here to tell you, routines are not the enemy. They're the rhythm. You know who taught me that? My Uncle Raymond. Old army man, tough as leather, but had the soul of a poet. Every single morning for 40 years, he'd wake up at 6:15 sharp, brush his teeth, make coffee, sit by the window, and watch the birds for exactly 10 minutes. When I asked him why, he said, "Because the world can fall apart around me, but I can always count on the birds and the coffee." That's my anchor. And that's the magic of routine. It's not just about what you do. It's about how you ground yourself when the rest of life feels unpredictable. A woman left a comment I loved. She said, "Every night I wash my favorite teacup, even if I didn't use it that day, just so it's clean for tomorrow. It's my way of saying I'll be here." That gave me chills. So no, routine isn't boring. It's sacred. It's what holds your day together when no one else is watching. And if it starts to feel stale, add a twist. Change the flavor of your tea. Dance during your vacuuming session. Try writing your grocery list with your non-dominant hand. You'll feel like a rebellious 10-year-old again. Routines don't kill joy. They make room for it. They say, "I've been here before, and I'll be here again." Number 7. Avoid ignoring your reflection. I know this might sound a little silly at first glance, but hear me out. There's something that happens when you stop looking in the mirror. I don't mean those quick glances when you're brushing your teeth or adjusting your glasses. I mean really looking, like the way you used to when you cared about how you showed up in the world. When you gave yourself that nod in the mirror before stepping outside like, "All right, let's go do this." I remember a gentleman named Ari from a seniors group I used to visit. He was 81, still wore suspenders, and had a mustache that looked like it had been styled in 1956 and refused to change with the times. Ari told me something once that I never forgot. He said, "The day I stopped looking in the mirror was the day I started disappearing." At first, I didn't quite get it, but then I saw what he meant. He had stopped shaving regularly. His clothes didn't quite fit like they used to, and the sparkle he used to carry in his eyes dimmed a little. It wasn't because of age. It was because he didn't see himself anymore. It's easy to let that happen when you live alone. Who's there to impress? Who cares if you wear the same old sweatpants every day? But here's the truth. You should care, because looking at your reflection isn't about vanity. It's about dignity. It's about saying, "I still matter. I'm still here." So throw on that old flannel that fits just right, or the earrings that make you feel a little mischievous, Comb your hair like you're heading out on a date, even if it's just with a crossword puzzle in your recliner. And when you pass that mirror, don't look away. Give yourself a little smile, maybe even a wink, because that face, it tells a hell of a story, and it deserves to be seen. Number 8. Avoid becoming the invisible neighbor. There's a man on my street, Mr. Howard. Lived there for years. Nice little brick house, green shutters, mailbox that squeaks when you open it. For the longest time, I didn't know a thing about him, and neither did anyone else. He kept to himself, didn't wave, didn't sit on the porch, didn't come to neighborhood gatherings. His lights were always on, so we knew he was alive. But he may as well have been a ghost. Then, one summer day, the power went out on our block. I walked around to check on folks and figured I'd knock on Mr. Howard's door just in case. He answered in a bathrobe with a flashlight and said, "You're the first person to knock in years." That hit me like a punch to the gut. Turns out he thought we didn't want to bother him and we thought he wanted to be left alone. So there we all were, neighbors for a decade, living side by side but completely disconnected. If you live alone, it's easy to start fading into the background. You stop initiating. You stop waving. You start thinking, I don't want to be a burden. And slowly but surely, your presence becomes a shadow. But let me tell you, every neighborhood needs its elders. Every street needs its story keepers. You don't need to be best friends with everyone on the block, but a wave, a smile, a quick chat with the mailman. That's all it takes to stay visible, to be known, to matter in your little corner of the world. One small hello can be the start of someone remembering you exist, and that you always have. Number 9. Avoid turning memories into a museum. Now, this one's tender. I once visited a woman named Maureen, whose home felt like a time capsule. Every shelf, every wall, every table had something from the past. Wedding photos and frames just starting to fade. Baby shoes and glass cases. Letters yellowed with age. It was beautiful, but it was also heavy, like the whole house was holding its breath. She showed me a room she hadn't entered in 2 years. "It's my husband's office," she said. "I just leave it the way he left it." There were his glasses on the desk, an old jacket hanging on the back of the chair. It felt like he might walk back in at any moment. But he wouldn't. And she knew that. She looked around and said, "I think I made this house into a shrine instead of a home." Now, don't get me wrong. Memories are sacred. Your history is a treasure chest. But when you turn your entire living space into a museum, you stop living in it. You start tiptoeing around your own story. I gently asked Maureen what she'd do if she could have that room back. She thought about it, smiled, and said, "Maybe I'd turn it into a painting studio. I used to love watercolor." And so slowly, piece by piece, she started changing it. Kept his favorite book, his watch, a few photos, but the rest she donated or packed away. She made space for something new without dishonoring what had come before. Because memories don't ask you to freeze time. They ask you to carry them forward. Keep the keepsakes. Hold the love. But don't stop your own story to preserve someone else's ending. There's more life to be lived yet. Make room for it. Number 10. Avoid thinking you finished growing. Here's the biggest myth they sell us after 60. That the adventure's over. That everything from here on out is just maintenance. Well, I call bull on that. I knew a man named Clarence who took up French at 82 because he wanted to surprise his daughter-in-law at Christmas. He didn't get every word right, but the look on her face when he toasted her in her native tongue worth every awkward lesson. And there was Eileen, who picked up an iPad at 77 and started drawing digital cartoons. She had never held a stylus before, said it made her feel like a kid with a new box of crayons. Growing isn't reserved for the young. It's reserved for the willing. The older you get, the more you realize that growth isn't about big, flashy transformations. It's about learning new ways to be curious, new ways to laugh, new ways to show up for yourself. When you think you've finished growing, you stop looking forward. You start watching the clock. But when you believe, even just a little, that there's still some spark left in your soul, you become a living, breathing contradiction, an elder who's still evolving. And that, my friend, is a beautiful, defiant kind of magic. So, here's the truth, my friend. Living alone doesn't mean living less. But you've got to stay sharp. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep making your meals an occasion. Keep opening that front door like the world still got something to offer you. Because it does. Don't let your reflection fade. Don't let your memories turn into a museum. And for heaven's sake, don't ever think you've stopped growing. You're still in the game, still needed, still capable of surprising even yourself. If this video gave you a little nudge, a little laugh, or even made you rethink something about your day, go ahead and give it a like. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, send it their way. You never know who needs the reminder. And hey, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more stories, more real talk, and more good company coming your way. You're not alone in this. Not as long as we keep talking.